I wish Hijab did not behave the way he did. He did not show up the way he did. He didn't do these actions because it did knock me down. It did knock me down faith-wise. I was completely crushed. I had my faith shaken. I pray and I wish if I could see our shuyukh and scholars come out and correct him easy. Just correct him, apologize and correction, and that's it, and move on.
Welcome back to Reason Answers. Today I have the extreme honor and privilege of interviewing Aisha, that is the woman who Muhammad Hijab tricked into a secret Misyar marriage. If you're unfamiliar with her story or have missed some of the developments, there's a playlist in the video description that can get you caught up to date. Today we're going to be talking with her to get an update on how things have progressed and to get her thoughts on how the case has been presented. I'm well aware that she's making a substantial sacrifice coming here today and talking to an enemy of Islam, such as myself, which could open her up to further criticism from the Islamic community. So, welcome to the program, Aisha. Why have you decided to do this interview?
I have decided to come on board on your channel for a few reasons. First, I was astonished and appalled from the reaction of our scholars and shuyukh. Silence was deafening. And I started this whole action of me bringing out what I have gone through, the marriage I have gone through, the divorce I have gone through, because I wanted to make sure that the real picture of Islam is seen. I expected that what Muhammad Hijab is preaching would be corrected, but unfortunately and sadly, that was not the outcome, and that didn't happen, and therefore that has affected me even more. And we can't, in this scenario, claim that they didn't know about the story. Actually, they did. I'm here after what Salman has put forward on the table, the big sacrifice he's done. He did put his life on hold. He did put his family on hold. Honestly, I am here to echo his efforts. I am here because I have reached out to a few other Muslim channels and they refuse to echo his sacrifice and what the effort he did put forward in his videos. And therefore, I realize you guys are the only ones who are talking about this topic. For me, what Muhammad Hijab has done was an extremely heinous and abhorrent, is the wrong preaching of Islam. Those are crimes and extremely disgusting actions that he did engage in. Considering his position of trust and authority, he has to be called out.
Thanks again for joining me today. I agree. Salman has done some great work. He's done something truly brave and special. He's put himself out there, risked criticism so that evil could be exposed, so that justice could be served. That's not something that's easy to do. It's much easier just to remain silent and say, well, it didn't affect me. It's not really my responsibility to talk about this. I'd be much safer not talking about it. And in this case, they also have the serious risk of retaliation from Muhammad Hijab, threats of violence perhaps even. So commendable work all around. Are you happy with how Salman has handled the case and how your story has been told publicly?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Brother Salman had gone himself through whatever trials, which were very shocking, and then a few other individuals as well, like the brother Abu Aya. There is like this pattern that has affected my faith, really. And Salman helped me. He helped me. I was breaking down spiritually. He took time, he did a lot of investigation, he did go through the details, the evidences I provided him. He spoke to many people, so he didn't take it for my word. He has done a very great job.
Absolutely. I agree that Salman has done some amazing work. As the case has progressed, there have been a number of Muslims who've come out and support private individuals primarily, who believe that you have truly been wronged and are completely on your side. But there's also been many Muslims who've come out and, while not necessarily supporting hijab per se, say that you are also in the wrong, perhaps even more in the wrong for revealing this, for bringing the story public. that perhaps the embarrassment brought on the Islamic community is worse than what Muhammad Hijab has done. What would you say to Muslims who hold that opinion, that there's something wrong about exposing Muhammad Hijab's deeds?
What Muhammad Hijab has done was not an action to be concealed. This is not a sin that he has committed between him and Allah. This is a sin through which he has harmed somebody's life. And we are not talking here about a little small action of a disagreement. I'm talking about the whole situation, the psychopathic interaction, the everything that has followed, the threats, the blackmail, the making up of stories, the slander. There are a lot of details. There are some details that were not even shared with the public. There is a lot going on. There was a lot. He refused to apologize. There was no retraction of the preaching that he's been influencing other men to follow. There was a lot of heinous crimes and actions that happened after I reached out and I tried to get at least some kind of clarity of why did he do this. If he would have apologized and there would have been a correction to what he's been preaching out there to the public, nothing of this would have been, exposed.
Absolutely. Muhammad Hijab is an individual that's worthy of condemnation. But I would also add that there's more at stake here than just Muhammad Hijab. As he's seen as a representative of Islam, his actions reflect not just on himself, but on the religion as a whole. There are Muslims who will go further and say that the majority of the fault, or perhaps even all the fault, lies with you. That by going public, you're suggesting that Muhammad Hijab is the only person to blame for this situation. How would you respond to such claims?
I spoke to my father. It was me who convinced my father and told him hijab is worthy of trust in a matter of marriage, basically. This is a man who's been married for a long time. He's got his own children. This was my own evaluation. Hijab has been fighting for Islam. He's been praised in so many organizations and institutes and mosques. So I convinced my father. It was me who convinced him, and this is why I feel the guilt. This is one of the reasons that has pushed me to come out public and expose this, because I convinced my father based on the fact that hijab is worthy of trust. But what happened after the marriage was abhorrent. It was shocking. It was not just a tiny little misunderstanding or a disagreement. So for me, this was not just a personal experience. This is an Islamic duty to come out and expose what hijab has done with the intention of there to be a correction for what he's preaching.
Well, regardless of what any Muslims may say, I personally believe that you are very brave and that you've done something very good coming forward and telling your story and exposing the truth about the actions of Muhammad Hijab. It takes a lot of courage to come and tell your story, knowing that people will criticize you, knowing that people will doubt you, knowing that people will be against you, and so much more so when the perpetrator of an action is a famous individual, is a powerful individual like Hijab. So what you've done is very important and very brave. So my next question to you is, what motivates you? What drives you? What keeps you moving forward with people like Muhammad Hijab fanboys coming out and opposing you and saying nasty things about you in public? What allows you to continue this fight?
The truth. The truth pushes me forward. And I am genuinely and honestly ready for absolutely everything and anything. Nothing could possibly faze me. Nothing. Why? Because I know that every single claim I made is true. And because I did go through the fire of not being capable of getting hold of every single evidence to every detail of what I have gone through. It did burn me. When you go through a lot and then you are only left with the little crumbs of whatever left over, you are trying to put them together and put forward your case and you say, like, I'm saying the truth. And then the other party, what Muhammad Hijab has done, has enlightened even further fire inside me of resilience, because he started fabricating things, lying. He didn't apologize. He didn't admit any of the things that he's done. He's fabricated things. He's spread lies. And honestly, these are things that I couldn't just remain silent in front of all these things.
The truth is a very powerful motivator indeed, and a great reason to continue this fight. We've seen what you could call a response from Muhammad Hijab. Certainly, he's aware of what's been said about him. Certainly, he's aware that people in the Islamic community don't like what he's done, but he's chosen to hide. Hide behind an AI narrator, hide behind his friends, but not say anything with his own voice. What do you think's going on in his mind? Do you think that he's learned his lesson? That is, that the public exposure to this incident will prevent him from doing this again? Or do you think that in the event there's no further consequences, that he'll just boldly do it again? Perhaps be a little more careful next time, maybe find a revert who, as he says, will take it better, but certainly not have learned any real moral lessons and will be ready to take another secret Misyar wife whom he can take advantage of.
I don't want to think about that, to be really honest with you, because what I do, honestly, what I do wish overcomes what I do think. From the get-go, I wish I haven't gone through any of this. I wish Hijab did not behave the way he did. He did not show up the way he did. He didn't do these actions because it did knock me down. It did knock me down faith-wise. I was completely crushed. I had my faith shaken. I pray and I wish if I could see our shuyukh and scholars come out and correct him easy. Just correct him, apologize and correction, that's it, and move on. I do not subscribe and I do not accept that in our religion these actions are called a valid opinion. I am not part of this and I am against this. I do really wish he's going to create a change in himself and basically come out and apologize to all the women and children that he has effectively harmed through his influence.
As a Christian, I can agree that my hope would be that Muhammad Hijab would repent of his actions and do better in the future. What about the rest of the community? What's at stake for the broader Muslim community, the dawah scene and those outside the dawah scene? What would it mean to people in a position of power if they see Muhammad Hijab getting away with this type of behavior? In other words, is this really about Muhammad Hijab, or is there something bigger and more important in play?
I never call for partition or conflict. I call for correction and accountability and punishments, regardless of who the person is, regardless of what their faith is, regardless of what their position is. Because people who got harmed, they at least deserve a clear, sincere apology. So I wish if the shuyukh and scholars and institutes, some of them at least would come out with a statement of correction, because what Muhammad Hijab is preaching, some of the shuyukh who advocate for a good relationship and justice and all these noble principles, they don't get as many views as Hijab does. I believe strongly that they have a bigger authority than him if they come out and just correct these preachings and explain that what Muhammad Hijab is preaching as a valid opinion is actually not.
There's a lot at stake here, I would say. Those who are in a position of authority need to be held accountable. They don't just stand up as leaders or intellectuals or celebrities. They also provide role models for society to follow. And when they're not held accountable, it leads to a degrading of public trust, and it leads to a degrading of societal values in general. Now, there's a difference between holding someone accountable and permanently canceling them. I'm not saying that anyone who does anything wrong ever should never be listened to again on any matter. What I'm saying instead is when someone in authority does something wrong, they need to do the same thing as what any person who does something wrong should do. They should repent from their actions. They should express genuine sorrow, and they should try to do better. And there should be some sort of justice and restoration for the victims of their actions. Contrast this to the behavior of Muhammad Hijab, and To be honest, many celebrities who've been in the same kind of situation, where instead of coming forward and honestly admitting their mistakes, they want to hide and pretend like they've done nothing wrong. And of course, Muhammad Hijab is not unique here. And you are not unique either. There are many women who have been abused by authority figures, both within Islam and in society more broadly speaking. Do you see yourself as a kind of voice for the oppressed and the abused, someone who's able to stand up and speak the truth for those who are unable or unwilling to do so themselves?
Absolutely, this is one of the driving forces inside me. And basically, this is why I'm speaking up. This was one of my motives, is to create a change and to stop this avalanche of abuse, basically, and exploitation of the vulnerable under the disguise of a valid opinion of use and abuse and then trashing the next day. So I do hope that I am a voice to every woman who could have potentially been harmed by these kind of actions and this ideology that is, according to me, not part of Islam.
That's awesome to hear because I personally believe that you are a very important voice, both for women in Islam and even women outside of Islam who faced this kind of abuse and intimidation from men. And I think that we can all agree, regardless of how we feel about Islam, that this is not part of good human values. It's not part of human morality, one might say, to mistreat other human beings. And that's very much what has happened here.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And now, some would say that you have already achieved justice of a sort, that your story has been told. Tens of thousands, perhaps even hundreds of thousands of people are now aware of your story. So my question to you is hearing your story enough? Are you happy with where the case stands? That is, are you satisfied with the justice you've achieved?
Satisfaction for me would be derived from achieving what I wanted to achieve the very first time. So there were a few things that were achieved. Alhamdulillah. It's sad. Muhammad Hijab helped us reveal some of his actions by, unfortunately, continuing and escalating his transgression, unfortunately and sadly. And I pray again that he would rectify his actions and fix what he's done and basically stop doing these kind of things. So that was the first thing, because I convinced my father that Muhammad Hijab is worthy of trust, and sadly and unfortunately, he was not. Second thing that I wanted to achieve that would bring forward satisfaction in regards to my case is a reply from our shuyukh and scholars that would rectify and correct Muhammad Hijab's claim that these kind of actions are a valid opinion in our religion. Unfortunately, this was not achieved. And also, I did hope that this is going to bring around an understanding in the Muslim community as well. Like those who are still defending hijab, and those who are telling me he's done more for Islam than you have, therefore you should have just let him do whatever. I don't know what their logic is like. This is why I decided to come out, and I wanted to give my last statement in my own voice in regards to something that I have gone through myself, that it did harm me, it destroyed me in so many ways. And basically, I wanted to have my own voice heard. After Brother Salman has done great job and he made great sacrifices, and I'm very thankful and grateful for his work. But I wanted to make sure that I've got my own voice heard to ignite a response from our scholars in regards to these crimes, basically.
As the story progressed in the public eye, there was some talk about potentially taking your case to a Sharia court. Now, obviously, a Sharia court doesn't have any legal standing within the United Kingdom, but it does have a considerable amount of social standing within the Islamic community. How has that effort gone?
So far, I would like to give respect to that authority, to that council, and I wouldn't really want to disclose much of my interaction with them. However, I just give a comment that they made it clear to me that the only thing they are going to be dealing with is divorce. And that is because the nature of the divorce and the circumstances around it was not really clear in terms of Islamic teachings and so on. They made it clear that's the only thing they are going to be engaging with me about. And therefore, because there are other aspects to what Muhammad Hijab has done, I realized that it is necessary for me to try my best and have this, close this case in my own words.
That's really unfortunate to hear. The divorce is certainly important, but it's only a small portion of the story. So the fact that the Sharia court is unwilling to look at the rest of the story is definitely disappointing. I mentioned how the Sharia court doesn't have any legal standing in the United Kingdom, but of course that means there's another option. There's the secular justice system, which certainly does have authority to hold Muhammad Hijab accountable for crimes that he's committed, both in criminal court as well as in civil court, where you could sue him for something like slander. What are your thoughts on pursuing justice from the secular justice system?
To be really honest, the only thing that ignites my actions in escalating is because this person, Hijab, has not acted in the appropriate way. He escalated his transgression, and therefore I realized I am worth something.
Absolutely.
This was my own life, this was my emotions, my faith. These were years of my youth. This was my child who got indirectly affected. These are women and children who are getting affected directly and indirectly through these preachings. And because it was extremely hard for me to lay hand on all the evidence, I was like, at least as long as I've got some evidence, then if you're not going to apologize about things that I wasn't able to categorically prove, I'm going to hold you accountable about things that I was capable to prove.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I would suggest that people like Muhammad Hijab, people in positions of power, need to be held accountable. And I would suggest that should be done by any legal means necessary. You didn't really provide a direct answer to my question about pursuing secular justice, but I do know that you created a GoFundMe for a possible civil lawsuit against Muhammad Hijab. Are you still interested in pursuing that lawsuit?
I will try my best to get that pursued, yes. I'm taking that into consideration. It's just subject to me being able to raise enough funds
Uh-huh.
and also the collaboration of all the people involved in this story. But obviously, like whatever money I am going to be raising and anyone who's going to be ready to help, if I end up not going ahead with that, I am more than happy to give all the money back. I'm sharing the receipt. I've got absolutely no interest in keeping that money for myself. And otherwise, I'm obviously ready to give all the money back when it doesn't go ahead.
Well, I definitely think it's a very worthwhile cause, worthy of financial support. Hijab needs to be held accountable. What he did is completely unacceptable and not something that any of us should be tolerating. If he's unwilling to admit his guilt, if he's unwilling to apologize and try to make amends, and if the Islamic Sharia system, as well as the scholars and authority figures, are unwilling to come out and say anything against him and hold him accountable, then I would say that civil justice is a must. I would also say that I think you have an extremely strong case and are very likely to win a judgment against Hijab. In his attempts to defend himself, he has escalated things and made very inflammatory statements about your mental health, calling you crazy. And these are the kinds of claims that can be severely damaging to one's reputation when someone in a position of authority like Muhammad Hijab says that you're crazy. A lot of people are going to see you that way, regardless of anything else. And thus, you have a very strong case against him. Hijab needs to be punished, both for his original actions and for the escalation that has happened since this became a public matter. I personally support the fundraiser. I've donated myself, and I put a link to that in the video description, as well as in a pinned comment for those who would like to do the same. So Muhammad Hijab needs to be held personally accountable. But in addition to his person, there's also the matter of his teachings. Muhammad Hijab has made a number of claims about marriage that many Muslims, yourself included, would find offensive and contrary to the true teachings of Islam. There's a modest-sized Muslim channel called Knowledge North that recently did a video critiquing Muhammad Hijab's teachings about Misyar marriage and related issues. In that video, they argue that hijab has badly misrepresented what Islam teaches. Would you be interested in joining me to analyze some clips from that video?
Absolutely, yeah, I'm more than interested. I think that was a very good material and it does cover a lot of information.
Excellent. We'll get that scheduled real soon and have you on the channel again to discuss the teachings of Muhammad Hijab. For today, what would you say to all those watching? What should they think about this situation?
So, to the Muslim audience, I would like to say that I have done my own evaluation of my own faith, similar to how Muhammad Hijab has done, and similar to how Ali Dawah did, and Sheikh Muhammad Tarawna did. Each and every one of them evaluated their own circumstances and situation and allowed themselves to do whatever they have allowed themselves to do. I have today decided to come for good cause, not harming absolutely anyone, coming together with the Christian community in common grounds with respect that I do appreciate that has been shown. I personally endorse and subscribe and encourage there to be mutual respect in between both groups advocating for both faiths, Christianity and Islam. This is unfortunately something that we don't see in our own du'at sometimes. They do mock other faiths and other ideologies and other worldviews in a way that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wouldn't like, basically. And I have decided and realized that it is a must for me to come out and provide my own statements in my own words. I am here trying my best to raise my voice one more time after the great work Brother Salman has done. And I'm calling our scholars and shuyukh and asking them to please come out and correct what Muhammad Hijab has preached because he is in a position of authority. I am here from your own platform, and thank you for this, trying my best to defend my own religion. I'm trying to defend Islam, Allah, the Prophet, and Islam according to my own understanding and the understanding that I believe is the correct one. I am here to defend the honor of women and children that have been violated and deceived and abused. And I do thank the Christian community for their support, for seeing the evidence and supporting what is right.
Thanks again for doing this interview today and providing your perspective. I'll add that from my perspective as a Christian, it's part of my responsibility to fight for justice, to fight for people who have been wronged, whether they are Christians or not. And Aisha has not received justice. She has not received what she is owed as a human being worthy of respect, of intrinsic value, dearly loved by God. And thus I'm motivated to continue to fight for that justice that she deserves. Muhammad Hijab has largely avoided consequences for his actions, shielded by his pathetic friends and those too cowardly to stand up for what's right. And thus I will continue to encourage all of those watching, whether Christians, Muslims, or otherwise, to fight for the truth and against abusers like Muhammad Hijab, to advocate for social justice for all. We'll have Aisha back real soon to talk about the teachings of Muhammad Hijab and how they relate to Islam. In the meantime, I encourage you to support her however you can. Share this video with others, and if you're able to contribute financially, again, the fundraiser is linked in the video description. For those who are Christians, I also encourage you to be praying for Aisha as she continues to fight for what is right.
Thank you so much.
God bless, and we'll see you again soon.